expectations. Manisha is here and she's going to give the commodity wish list. Manisha.
Well, thank you so much for that. I want to start with the top one that we have in sense of commodities, and that is the commodities transaction tax. Let me remind you that the commodities as a derivative market began in 2003, and it was in 2013 that we saw CTT being levied in case of commodities. Now, remember, commodities is quite different from equities, and it's a low margin trade. There is majorly small retailers, MSMEs, FPOs, and farmers as well trading within. So it is a hedging mechanism, and CTT has actually led to a bit of a decline and an impact on the trade. And this is one thing that the trade absolutely has on a wish list from the time it was put in for this to be abolished. The second one really is about allowing banks to trade into commodities. This will not only bring in credibility, transparency, but higher volumes within the space as well. Allowing NRIs into this space also has been a long-term ask. And then it has been about modern warehousing. So this will actually benefit grading, quality processing, certification services, etc., which is something that the agri as a trade and a post-harvest is watching out for. The other is about relisting of the 7 agri commodities, which have a blanket ban on them until December 2024. So a relook into this is something that the trade is wanting for. And the other is to replace GST with IGST, which is integrated goods and services tax in case of commodities, something that would yet again work and favor better in this trade. I also want to take you through on what gold as an industry is wishing from this budget this time around. One is, of course, about the reduction in the import duty from a current 15% to a 10%. The other is about the special benefit of 0.5% duty on imports from India International Bullion Exchange. IBX, remember, has been a big success in the last 1 year. But to facilitate further, the markets are anticipating more push into this one. The other clearly has been about setting up a jewelry exports center. This is within the GIFT City itself. And the other is mandatory hallmarking. As of now, smaller jewelers with lower turnovers and on pieces which are smaller in case of weightage and caratage are not mandated. But this is something that the industry is also asking for. The other is stopping import duty benefits for the least developed countries, and also FTAs within countries is another thing that is on an ask here. And apart from that, a lot of retail or jewelry buying community is asking for EMIs when it comes to buying in jewelry. That's another thing that the street is watching out for. Diamond industry is also looking for a reduction in import duty to 2.5%. This is in case of rough and polished diamonds as well. And the other is buy and selling of rough diamonds within special notified zone is another one that continues to be on a wish list for the last couple of years now. But we are joined by Mr. Narinder Wadhwa. He's President, Commodity Participation Association of India. Mr. Wadhwa, hi. There's a long list, even as this is an interim budget. The wish list continues to be quite strong, whether it has been from derivative markets, gold as a sector, or even agriculture, where the markets do believe that we could really see come in positive. What's your sense if you were to put out 5 things that you expect to see within this budget? What would that be?
Thanks for having me, Manisha ji. Definitely, you narrated it well, although it is a vote on account, but we are taking it as a run-up to the main budget in July, which is going to be presented by the new government. Definitely, as in previous years, so we have seen CTT as a major cost of transaction in the whole transaction cost of the commodities market. And because of these cost of transaction, a lot of business is going to overseas jurisdiction, overseas markets. We want that trade to come back to India, as there is a nara in government to manufacture or make in India. We want to have a slogan that trade it India also. That will happen only when we rationalize the cost of transaction. And the major part of cost of transaction is CTT. You narrated it well. Before 2013, the China and India, if we compare, they have grown, big way. And because of this cost of transaction, so we are still at the 2013 level. We have not reached to a level which our markets command, and our market should be at that level. See, after this COVID, there is a China plus one policy, and so we are encouraging a lot of manufacturing in India. PLI scheme is in place. So we have to ensure that the commodity ecosystem is in place. That will happen if we rationalize our cost of transaction. That being our first demand, first submission to the government to look at it and rationalize it. We would expect that we abolish it altogether and let our commodities market reach to a level. Only then we can increase it. Or other option is to reduce the cost of transaction and reduce the CTT. Another point, as you mentioned it earlier also, GST is a major issue. We have all the participants in the market. Few of the SEBI official, regulatory official used to say all three P's should be in place if we want to develop the markets. These are product, policies, and the participants. All participants are there, but there are issues for these participants to participate. This is because of GST issue. Any delivery which happens through these exchanges, the participants have to get themselves registered in different state where their delivery centers are. So to fix this, we have suggested all deliveries on commodities exchanges should come under the IGST model. And if that happens, that GST problem will be taken care of. Other issues, as you mentioned, are about the agri market. We have seen withdrawal of commodities, agri commodities from our ecosystem, the derivative markets. Although it is not part of the budget thing, but again we have suggested, as it is a communication between the policymakers and the participants, to restore these 7 commodities in our markets.
Well, absolutely. 3 major points, as you pointed out, that can be expected and are on the wish list, obviously. Mr. Wadhwa, also a point on further commodities being enlisted as well. There has been this conversation about weather derivatives for a very long time. Electricity futures is another one, allowing NRIs into the market, having banks being part of as a participant as well. It's a long list, obviously. Do you see any of that come through this year?
See, I again emphasize that for our ecosystem, commodity ecosystem, if we have to achieve 7 trillion economy, 40% will come from commodity sphere. So we have to make sure that ecosystem is in place and all relevant commodities are traded on our commodities exchanges. In that direction, we have suggested, and we are, regularly discussing in other committees, CDAC committees and other forums, that a relevant contract should be introduced. One of the contract is plastic credit and weather contracts, which are relevant for our market. And it is high time that we introduce these contracts, carbon credit, electricity contract, the plastic credit, and other relevant contracts should be introduced in our markets. So this is one. And say other submissions for us for agri market is that in India we want to double the income of the farmers, and the farmers are at distress only at the time of the post harvest. They are facing many issues. For that, we have suggested that there should be silos, warehouses near the mandis where they are given the option to store their products for 2-3 weeks in public. So we develop these silos or warehouses through public-private partnership. And we feel that if we give them this option or this facility, they'll be able to get their fair prices from the markets.
Okay. All right, Manisha, thanks very much for bringing us that insightful conversation. Thanks very much for that. Well, we need to take a short break.